Hai guys, welcome to Raymond Octavian channel. Sekarang gue lagi ada di Salatiga, tepatnya di
1915 Arts Koffiehuis.
Di video kali ini gue akan ketemu sama temen gue dari Australia yang udah gue kenal sejak tahun 2015, dan kita akan ngobrolin tentang kegiatan dia selama di Salatiga ini. Gue juga bakal tanya-tanya sama dia tentang kenapa sih dia itu betah banget ada di Indonesia. And by the way, gue akan bikin videonya dalam bahasa Inggris karena dia nggak begitu pinter bahasa Indonesia. So daripada lama-lama, kita langsung ketemu sama dia. Stay tuned and let's go.
Tea or something?
Okay, I'm with Graham now, and Graham, probably a little introduction for our viewers.
My name is Graham, I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and I'm in Indonesia doing a volunteer assignment.
Volunteer assignment, that's quite interesting. What actually you do?
In this current one, I'm working with an organisation called Supple Upcycle in Salatiga. Now, Supple Upcycle happen to produce everything from bags to jewellery to all kinds of things. These are just two that I actually bought myself because I really like them. And they're all made out of recycled inner tubes of cars, that's in the tubes of cars, and of course army tents, old army tents. And apart from that, they're incredibly practical and incredibly strong and incredibly stylish. And they sell them in London, Paris, Amsterdam, New York, Moscow. They have a huge export market and they have a little small home industry in Salatiga.
Okay, so what actually you do for them?
Basically, my job is to assist them in business structure, marketing, and actually try to answer some questions. I think the biggest issue is that most Indonesians, maybe from the old education system, because it is changing, lacks confidence in themselves, confidence in, and belief in what they're doing. So therefore, I try to help them, advise them, but they actually have all the decisions and all the answers in their mind already. Paham.
Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do the volunteering activity?
Why? Because I've lived a long time on and off in Indonesia, as you know. I like living in Indonesia, and if I believe I can help in any way, I'm quite happy to. My government gives me an allowance, which is very similar to what my counterpart would be earning in Indonesia, so there's no disparity. So it's not like the Bule comes in on a high wage, like the UN wage. You come in as an equal counterpart, so you work together.
Isn't there any age limit when you want to volunteering, like with the government of Australia?
There used to be actually. Well, there were two schemes. There was one for I think under 30s and one for over 30s. They've combined them both together now, and generally now they're looking for older people because they think that older people have lived longer, have more information, aren't going to get caught up in stupid cultural issues, and will actually come here and work, but actually know when to pull back, when to go, well, it's not my country, it's your country, so I'm not going to come and tell you how to run your business or whatever your volunteering is,
right,
but to work with you, to co-work with you.
Okay, so you work together.
Yeah.
I wonder how strong is the spirit of volunteering in Australia, like if you compare it to Indonesia.
Okay, I have to be very careful what I say here,
right,
because you know, my experience in your country is probably limited 18 years, but over a long period. I would actually argue volunteering is greater in Australia because we have this culture that our mothers will volunteer at the Pramuka Scouts and Guides, to the local school, to our fathers to do volunteer work wherever. So we grew up with a culture of volunteering.
Right.
Throughout life we volunteer, and you get older and you retire and you still keep doing things. I know volunteering happens in your country, but it tends to be more specific, I would guess, to religion, not necessarily across the board. But that also could be because you have a greater disparity in your country of people in poverty and wealth, whereas we're more middle class. Even though that's changing with world economics. So I think there's probably more volunteerism happening in my culture than yours.
Because I think in Indonesia, like the spirit of volunteering is not really rising before the 19th of Asian Games, when they hired like 13,000 of volunteers. From that part, then volunteering becomes more popular.
Okay, well, first of all, I know you were a volunteer on the games.
Yeah.
But you weren't hired, you were given an allowance.
Yeah.
So obviously people have now realised in Indonesia, by volunteering for things like the games, the government gets cheap labour, but you get experience, something for your curriculum vitae, something that you've done, that you've shown you've got ability to work with people. So that's probably a new concept. That will spread through Indonesian society, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. How important it is volunteering for you?
Quite simple. I've got 3 years to go before I get the pension, so I'm probably giving my age away. So I could either sit back in Australia, having lived in your country, as you know, because we used to live in Jakarta. I could sit back in Australia and do a lower level job and go to an office for 5 days a week, having been in an international job. Or I could go, I don't want to do that. I'd like to go back to Indonesia, get a lower allowance, but with the buying power here at the exchange rate, I can live a better life.
Right. I know some international NGO have such kind of volunteering program, for example like the UN with its United Nations volunteer. Why don't you try to engage with them?
I'm the UN. Wow! Work
really? You work for UN?
So of course I used to work for the United Nations Development Program in Indonesia, so that would, I'm too old to become a UND. I think they've got an age limit of 30 and I'm well over that. I'm not sure of the details, but I used to work for the United Nations in your country and obviously in other countries like Timor-Leste. So I've done that. So with this scheme, this is an Australian government scheme, whereas the UN is an international.
You think it's hard to get into the UN, like to work with them?
As a volunteer or a paid worker?
Like what you do for them?
I just think I was very lucky. Sadly, there was the tsunami, and that created job opportunities. So I suppose I was very lucky to have been able to be offered a position and to go through the due recruiting process. But B, because I'd worked for the UNDP in Timor-Leste, that obviously put me in good stead. But unfortunately, if there hadn't have been a tsunami, then I would have had a job like many international workers.
Alright, so that's because of the tsunami, so you can...
Well, basically, even though I didn't work on the tsunami, I was Jakarta based, I was just replacing another international worker who went up to Aceh to work with Pintoro, your ex-minister. So I was just lucky.
Alright, moving on to the more specifically on, like why do you like Indonesia and stuff. First question, among so many other Asian countries that you have visited, Why do you choose Indonesia?
I think I keep coming back to Indonesia, obviously, because I first came here when I was 21 as a kid surfing in Bali. I stayed for 2.5 years, not in Bali, but in Java. So I still have old friends here from those days. So I've got old friends here. I speak a little bit of your language. I relate to the culture. There are things I hate about the culture. There are things like I've got scarred knees because I fell over in your street the other night in Salatiga, purely because you don't have good walking areas, you don't have good lighting. So obviously that's infrastructure. There are things I hate about it. Do I like seeing people in poverty? No. I don't like seeing people in poverty in my own country, street people, homeless people. But Indonesia is going forward. Indonesia is growing. You've just elected Jokowi as your president again for another term, which is fantastic. So you can see Indonesia changing. If you look at Jakarta, Jokowi and Ahok, Jakarta changed overnight. It's got footpaths, so you won't fall over. It's got walking areas, it's got lighting, it's got new public transport. This is the new Indonesia. So I keep coming back to, I suppose, because obviously, you know, I like the people, I like the food, I like the culture, but there are elements I hate. No, I have to be honest.
But you still want to come back to Indonesia? Yeah,
but if I compare our two societies, there are things I hate in my society too. I mean, I hate stupid people. There are stupid people in your country, there are stupid people in my country. And I hate fanatics. And there are fanatics in my country. There are fanatics in your country.
That's good.
So there's not much difference really. Comparatively, economically, yes, it's a lot cheaper for me to live in Indonesia. You know, I smoke cigarettes, and of course, $2.50 for a packet in this country, $30 for a packet in mine. Nasi campur in Australia, it's going to cost you $15 to $20. What do you pay here? $1.50. So of course you have worries. We don't have worries. There are lots of attractive things.
So that's how you like Indonesia, right? Then do you think personally that Indonesia is somehow better than Australia to live in?
Economics, I've been through. Infrastructure, no, nowhere near it. You're a developing country. Well, unfortunately, under the Dutch, for 350 odd years, not a lot happened. People argue it did, I would argue it didn't. Then you had Suharto. Obviously, things didn't progress as much as they could have. I'm being very careful what I'm saying here. So, in 20 years of democracy, Indonesia's progressed dramatically. We've had 220 years of democracy. Has Australia progressed? I look at the last political election in Australia, I'm not convinced about that. So yeah, there are comparisons. Your education system is changing dramatically now. You're paying tax now, which in the future means you'll end up like a Western country, paying tax, having education, health and all those things for free that we get, but we pay for it in advance. So yes, there are good and bad.
Because I heard that you keep complaining about how cold Melbourne is, how you hate the cold, how you like swim in Indonesia and so on and so forth. So that means somehow you like living in Indonesia.
Well, let's be honest. You know from the days Jogja. I like the heat. I don't like the cold. I come from Melbourne. I hate winter. This morning, my ex-partner put on Facebook, it was 7 degrees to work, 7 degrees, and the top in Melbourne was going to be 17 degrees a day. This is 32 degrees. Where would I rather be? 32 degree weather and swimming in natural spring water pool. Salatiga is quite beautiful on that area. 3 volcanoes and natural spring water. So of course, as a swimmer, this is fantastic.
Probably you could give some insight, like among those many regions that you stay in, what are the differences between the people here and there in some different regions in Indonesia?
I'm going to be very careful about that one.
Yeah.
We've had this discussion.
Yeah.
Are the Javanese different to the Sumatrans? Are they different to the Balinese or the people from Lombok or whatever? Yes, everyone has cultural differences.
Yeah.
You all have different languages. You all have totally different foods. Certain areas are more led by strong religions, whether it be Christian, you could argue, in the eastern part of Indonesia, to Islam is the predominant one. In the west, you could argue by the missionaries that came here. Obviously, one could argue that maybe the Bataks, for instance, are different because they were influenced by German missionaries to an area in NTT that was influenced by Laksumba, by the Portuguese, to the Javanese. I mean, I would have to ask other Indonesians what they think, but I'm not going to say on camera what many Sumatrans and other Indonesians think about the Javanese. Isn't it that where you carry your crisp knife? Where do you carry your crisp knife as a Javanese?
Here.
And where do the rest of Indonesia carry their crisp knife?
Front.
That's right.
So, probably go to the last question. Do you have a particular plan that in the future you wanna spend the rest of your life in Indonesia?
No, I have no idea. Economically, it would be smarter for me to live here. Obviously, if I get the Australian pension, which I will, obviously on economic standards. But who knows what's going to happen in your country? You've got a fabulous president for the next 5 years for his second term, but anything could change. Obviously, there are things that are easy to get in Australia. If I want a nice bottle of wine, I can get one at the local shop. Here, I mean, no offence, but your wine is crap and it's so expensive. So there are different things to think about.
Okay.
When Indonesia gets its pollution issue under control and stops throwing all its rubbish into the rivers, fantastic. But I remember when we used to do that when I was your age in Australia, before we had an education program that said keep Australia beautiful. So maybe out of Jokowi, you'll get a program keep Indonesia beautiful, and you'll all change your psyche, because that's what happened to us.
It's process in time. Right. So I think that's all. We've got a lot of conversations about some different topics. Thank you, Graham.
A pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well guys, itu tadi adalah obrolan ngalor ngidul kita sama teman gue Graham dari Melbourne, Australia. If you enjoyed this video and you get something from it, boleh kasih like. Dan kalian boleh juga tinggalin jejak di kolom komentar di bawah. Gue Raymond Octavian, thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video.